Welcome to the United Wrestling Podcast. My name is Nick Bonanno. I am the senior official for the United Wrestling Network and the producer of wrestling operations across the board. I'm joined tonight by my co-host, Jon Roberts. Jon, how you doing?
Good, Nick. How about yourself?
Great to see you.
You as well.
Thank you. Of course, our guest of honor this evening, our golden guest, if you will, is the golden boy, Jordan Clearwater.
Thanks for having me, Nick. Glad to be here.
Finally got you on. And so, man, waiting for this one.
That's right. I've been excited to do this.
Yeah. What's it called? Your video for the push came out yesterday. It's been getting a lot of attention across the United platforms. And you started out kind of talking about how you would kind of roughhouse with your brother, and that sort of led you into seeing wrestling and things like that. I guess, what was your childhood like, or what was the early life that led you to, boys will be boys?
Yeah, for sure. No, I was always interested in like the outdoors, Boy Scouting, different kinds of sports, things like that, football, amateur wrestling. So I was always roughhousing and playing outside in the trees and stuff like that. So it's funny you mentioned that because I can still remember the day that we were, going at it in the living room or whatever. And it's just like, check this out. You got to check this out. It's on television right now. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever, turns it on. Monday Night Raw. You guys hit the nail on the head. Triple H beating somebody down. And I was hooked from the television from that moment forward.
So is Triple H one of your favorites as a result of that being the first person that you saw?
Oh, yeah. He's top, number one, for sure.
So what from his arsenal have you stolen?
Definitely the punches. Best punches in
I could see that.
Yeah. I mean, man, I talk about studying one of the greats, everything from the way he attacks the mat to his punches and things like that. I mean, it's best stuff out there is Triple H's stuff. So he's definitely a ring general for that.
Right on. Did you play any sports growing up while you were roughhousing and climbing trees and doing all that kind of stuff? Anything organized or even just in the backyard?
Yeah. I swam. I did some amateur wrestling as well. Won a couple medals there, and then did some football. Trying to figure out what worked best for me. And then, that was in like grade school. And then when I moved into high school, I got more into bodybuilding, and that's kind of been my focus since then. I didn't play sports in high school, just focused on bodybuilding, things like that. And that, progressed into the professional wrestling career as well.
Now, speaking of bodybuilding, I remember the day that we shot your push segment. You mentioned that you are training currently for bodybuilding competition. Is that right?
That's correct. NPC West Coast in October. I will be competing. Haven't told many people about it, but here it is, and throw my hat in the ring for that. So I've been training during COVID for that. I've been lucky enough to have a gym and a personal trainer stay open to do some personalized coaching. So, but doing some work towards that. That's what I've been focusing on since you guys last saw me.
Excellent. How does training for bodybuilding differ from, weight training for like functional use for wrestling or other sports?
Sure. Yeah. I think the cardiovascular part of bodybuilding training is a lot more closer to wrestling than you would expect. It's a lot of repetitions. It's a lot of exercises. There's no breaks, so when we go in the gym, we go for 30, 45 minutes nonstop, rounds and sets. And so on the cardiovascular side, it's different. On the wrestling side, it can be tough because the goal is to lean down, to put as much muscle on, but to lean down as thin as possible. Of course, you have a low body percent fat is going to cause fatigue in the ring very early because you don't have that fat, you don't have that energy to burn. So, that's kind of like the contrary to it. So injuries are become pretty prone at that point as well, because you're really focused on losing that water weight, all that good stuff to get on the stage, but trying to keep a healthy dose of both.
Nice. Have you ever competed before?
No, this will be my first time. I've been doing bodybuilding for probably 9 years now, but this will be like the first official run I could say that I did it professionally. So that'll be pretty cool.
Awesome. So I assume that you spend all of your time eating now. Is that accurate or just?
Oh my gosh, Nick, you can say that again. It makes me like I get sick to my stomach sometimes. I can't eat enough. I'm thinking about it right now. I'm thinking about my next meal. I'm thinking, man, what am I gonna have for dinner? And then post dinner, and then third dinner, and then bed, and then 2 a.m. dinner, and then breakfast. So it's like,
so you're eating like a hobbit. Then you're eating like 14 meals
exactly
a day.
Right. That's exactly right, John. That's exactly where I pulled that from. Breakfast, second breakfast, lunch, second lunch. That's me.
Yeah.
So what led to you actually getting in the ring and deciding, I saw Triple H on television beating the crap out of guys looking jacked, tan, lean. Now I want to do this. What caused you to go down that path?
Yeah, it was like I was enamored. Right away, I was enamored with the whole idea of professional wrestling, with that whole conceptualization, the entertainment aspect. I knew from that day that I wanted to be involved in the sport. And I started reading books and trying to figure out from what people did before me. I read a lot of Triple H has a book. A lot of people have books. Chris Jericho's books are great. Started reading books, trying to figure out what it took, what that path to success looked like. And, and that started to build that love for it. So I did as any normal, 18-year-old would do, graduate high school and look up professional wrestling school, and lo and behold, there was two right next to me. There was Northern Wrestling Federation and Ohio Valley Wrestling, which was a little bit further from me. And so the choice was easy for me. I went with the NWF and never looked back.
So you mentioned in the push piece that you met Carl Anderson. How much has his friendship and his relationship helped you through professional wrestling? And obviously it led to you coming here to California, but could you go into a little more detail about that friendship and how it's influenced you in pro wrestling?
Yeah, and that was a part of the reason why I chose the NWF. So, Roger Ruffin has trained all of these great guys: Abyss, Carl Anderson, Jillian Hall, you name it, they've came through those doors. Dean Ambrose has walked through those doors, being part of the HWA right down the street. Cody Haka, all of those people are pretty good. So he was well tied in, and being a part of that, being able to be his golden boy for those 2-3 years really gave me that opportunity to network. And that's where I met Chad, and that's where I met Abyss. And it was such a great experience. So, being able to meet him and understand that, this guy is more than just a professional wrestler. He's just a normal dude. He puts his pants on the same way everybody else does. And being able to have those dinners and be able to sit down and pick his brain, such a great mind. So to answer your question too, about coming out to California, if it wasn't for Chad really giving me that call and telling me that I needed to go, I probably wouldn't be here today. And I would have missed a lot of opportunities because of that, and I'm still getting opportunities even in COVID, where it's just by virtue of being a part of the United Wrestling Network and knowing you guys has been such a great success to my career in and of itself. So I would even tack that on there. So it's not just Carl Anderson, it's you guys too. It's being out here, being around a totally different group of people that think differently and help me grow as a person too.
So would you be, oh, sorry, go ahead, Nick.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Oh, so would you, if someone else was to come to you and say, hey, in the walk of life that I'm in, whether it's say music or pro wrestling or just a 9-to-5 job in say an office building somewhere, and they're looking to go to the next level, but in order to do so, they need to get out of where they are. Are you someone that if they came to you asking for that kind of advice, would you say, yes, go for it, hit that reset switch, totally upset your life and do it?
Oh, 100%. It's been an experience like no other, and it's not easy. You know what I mean? The first 6 months are always the toughest. It's always the toughest part because you're in a place you don't know anybody. Nobody seems like they want to help you. You're trying to figure out where you're at. It's a totally different dichotomy. It's a totally different culture. And so being able to do that helps you not just grow in your field of expertise. It helps you grow as a person and helps you become more confident in yourself and be able to go do things. I could pick up and leave tomorrow and, still be nervous about leaving, but, knowing that I did it before gives me some comfort. So just being able to have that flexibility is pretty cool. So I would recommend it to everybody, even in the music industry. I was in a band myself for a couple of years while I was in high school. So I got to play the drums, in case you didn't know. So there might be some clips out there of little old me playing the drums at some benefit shows.
John, who are you going to put him in touch with? Are you going to start? You still have the guitar in front of you there? Or?
Yeah, it's sitting right here. Well,
what are we going to do this jam session, John? I got a electronic kit. Bring it on over. We can dial the noise down. We can have some fun.
Whenever you're ready, man. Whenever you're ready.
What kind of music did you play?
So we mainly focused in country and 80s, 90s rock. So, Metallica was a staple of ours, different things like that, things that people could get down to, oldies but goodies, so we kind of dabbled in making a little bit of our own music, but it never really, went anywhere. We all had our separate passions, right? And wrestling at that point was just starting to take off. And I realized, hey, I should focus on, either my career or professional wrestling or this. And so I always retained drumming as a hobby, but I haven't been in a band since. But I would always love to jam.
I figure it's a lot easier to put an electronic kit into your pack it up into your car than maybe a full drum kit. But that's a good benefit there. Don't have to have the band coming around.
Exactly.
So
that or a wrestling ring, for that matter. Packing up the whole wrestling ring and throwing it in your car.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, right.
That seems like a situation people have been in. Is that specifically something you've had to do? Is pack up a ring and put it into your car or into a van or something like that?
Man,
rings come in all different sizes.
Oh yeah, I've had some pretty wild experiences with loading and unloading rings in the craziest parts of town. The backwards woods in Indiana where, the only thing to eat is a gas station a couple miles away, and all they've got is Spam. So, I definitely have those weird stories where it's like, what are we doing here? But it was a great show, and we always make memories. So good story is always better than a good time.
Nick's got a good story about Ring Crew, if I remember correctly. Wasn't there the one in New York, up and down a flight of stairs into a basement or something like that?
Yeah, of course. I was gonna say I have many weird stories about Ring Crew. The one you're referring to was maybe like 2010, 2011. I was doing Ring Crew for I think Evolve or Dragon Gate, one of those two, because they ran together often. And the venue, I don't think it's there anymore. It's called BB King's. At the time, was like a popular New York City venue. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of them, different places. But they had no freight elevator, and the ring. So the main showroom was in the basement. And though there was plenty of room in the showroom itself, the staircase to get down seemed like it was spacious. But when you're moving like an 18-foot like side beam of a ring, that gets really small really quick.
Man, that sounds horrible.
Okay, so what we had, luckily there were high ceilings there. So what we had to do, we had to tip them up and like gradually bring it down. But what's challenging about that especially is I think that still makes me laugh about, I guess, Ring Crew in general, is that typically the farther into your career you get, you don't have to do Ring Crew anymore. But usually also the farther into your career you get, you're more muscular. Typically, you've been working out for more years. So it's always the weakest people are doing Ring Crew, usually. And so we're all, in fact, there was a thing that I think it was coined that day that one of the vets started calling the way that I walked the banana shuffle, because I'd be like trying to hold on to something and not lose my footing. But man, it was a cool room to have wrestling in, but it was not something I envied doing Ring Crew for ever. So.
Yeah, that's so funny. But how true is that? It's like, the most people that are on Ring Crew typically are just getting started in their career, so they either don't know where things are going or they're not, there's like 4 people to a ring post and everyone's trying to go each way. So it's definitely an experience.
I was saying, because I have 2 other ring stories. Is that the first 2 that popped to mind were both out here in California, and it wasn't getting the ring. I guess it wasn't getting the ring down the stairs, but getting the ring into a building. Maybe a year or 2 ago, I worked a venue after a Hollywood taping. I did a double shot, and they didn't measure the room to see if it would actually fit a ring, and the ring didn't fit the room.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, and so we ended up having to do the show just on the wrestling mats on the floor, which at first they thought it would be kind of disastrous, but once the show got going, actually I thought it was super interesting the way that they were able to take that negative and really flip it into a positive, because it gave the audience something they had literally never seen before.
When was that, if you don't mind me asking?
When was it? It was either 1 year ago or 2 years ago. I honestly can't remember. I think it might have been 2 years ago. Probably 2 years ago. Yeah, it was. It was for Dark Light.
I was gonna say, was that? I heard about that. Was that?
Yeah.
Was that Dark Light or Dark Craft or Black Craft or?
It was Dark Light. I think Black Craft, I want to say, is on the East Coast or something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah, I knew it was something like that. I thought I heard about that through the grapevine. I'm like, man, that was a tough one.
Anytime I talk to that promoter, I'm trying to get that show going again, because I'm like, no, this is a market that doesn't exist. Let's do it right now. It's like, because you got now there's all kinds of shows that don't have they're just barroom fights, and it's like, okay, that's a show, and now you don't have to pay for a ring. It's like, okay, now you just have to get mats. You can get your own mats. You can have everyone have specific, the rest can all have like certain polos and stuff. It's like you get guys who are gymnasts, you get guys who are technical wrestlers. There's all kinds of things that you can do specifically in that situation that you can't do elsewhere. But I'm going off tangent here. So to bring it back to you, as you were saying that you're always trying to, in the video, you're always trying to evolve, you're always trying to learn something new. So a thing that I actually really like about you that I've gathered from just hanging out or working on different projects through United is that you're really a student of the game. And, if you've learned one thing, you make sure to keep learning other things. So Once you got into championship wrestling, what are some things that you started to learn and wanted to kind of take in that you couldn't get other places?
Production. I mean, that's the number one thing. And I think I shared that with you before in the past. John knows, I think you both know, you see me around there all the time. If I'm not wrestling, I'm in the production room, because that's something that you can't get anywhere else. And that in and of itself is worth its weight in gold. No pun intended. But that was,
I would say your first. Oh, go ahead. Continue.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, your first 3 or 4 months.
You might have just dropped out, John. I don't know. I can't.
Yeah, I can read lips, but not that well.
Yeah, John, I can hear you. All right, so we're going to come back to John in a moment. We got a question from our chat here. Where'd you get the name Golden Boy? Mark Murphy asks.
Yeah, Mark. So great question. Golden Boy came out of a rib, a backstage rib. I was known as the Golden Boy because I was the first to show up, the last to leave, scrubbing the rings, scrubbing the toilets, taking the trash out. You name it, I did it. So I was John's back. But I was doing all those things. Ring crew was number one of those things, and so people started calling me Golden Boy. Oh, that's the Golden Boy, as a rib. They're ribbing me Golden Boy, and I thought to myself, that's a pretty cool name. I think that I want to keep that name, and you know what? I am. That's what kind of started that whole progression of, I am the Golden Boy. Why not? Why can't I be the Golden Boy? Why can't the Golden Boy be the first one to show up, the last one to leave? Why can't he be that guy? What's wrong with that? That's perfectly fine. I have a dream that I want to pursue. And so it just evolved into this thing, and I'll never forget, there are a couple guys at the NWF to help me develop that name into what it is today, and it's only going to progress from there. So, so NWF, a couple years back, 2017 turned into the Golden Boy.
Excellent. John, you there at all? No, you still up?
Oh no, I thought he was back.
Sorry, bud.
How about now? Am I back now?
Yes.
Yeah, you're there.
Yes,
yeah,
you're
this
there.
mic decided to take a dive, so now I'm using the one that's inside the computer. What I was getting at, and that's a great story about how you got the name Golden Boy, by the way. It's a shoot.
It's a shoot. I mean, it is. That's how it came. It was a shoot.
The thing that I noticed when you first came to Hollywood was those first 3 or 4 months before you debuted, you'd get there early, you'd set the ring up, and then right before we'd start rolling, you'd be in the control room, sitting there the whole show from start to finish, and you'd be listening to everything that was going on, the way that that director Billy Trask was communicating to camera ops, the way that producers were talking to referees and to whoever, everything that was going on. So I feel like you picked up a lot of information in those first 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, for sure. I'll never forget my very first day. I walked in and introduced myself to everybody, and I saw Logan specifically was walking around. He was sitting there. He didn't look like he was talking to anybody at the time, and I came up to him and I just started asking him questions. I said, could you walk me through this whole thing? If you have 30 seconds, what are the
Logan,
positions
for people
that
who
you're
don't
talking
know
about? What's that?
Who is Logan for people who might not know?
Oh, he works the hard cam for the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I just saw him there editing. I didn't know that at the time. I just saw him there messing with the cameras and things like that. So he did. We took time out of his schedule. He walked me through this is position 1. Then you typically do this, and he laid it out for me. And that was my introduction to TV wrestling, if you want to call it that.
It is.
It was great. And it was a great introduction. I don't forget that still to this day. He walked me through that, and I still think that those basics still stay with me.
Have you shown that to other people? The newer people who have come through?
Yeah, and the coolest thing about all of this is being able to give back, especially to my home promotion, to people that might not have the opportunity to work for television, especially in this capacity. You mentioned Evolve. People that are going to Evolve tryouts might want to know how to work those cameras. It doesn't matter whether it's Ring of Honor, Evolve, whatever. So just being able to translate that information back is awesome. And it helps me too as a coach. Because rewalking myself through those steps, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Or you know what, I should try this. New idea pops in, totally different tangent. So
now, we weren't your first foray into televised wrestling. You were part of, I believe it's Appalachian Mountain Wrestling, AMW, if that's right.
Yes.
And they had a TV show, but it was a little different, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, and that goes back to just wrestling in general and how different those markets are, especially Appalachian Mountain Wrestling in the southern states. It's got a totally different style, a totally different fan base. You know what I mean? And it taught me a lot of different things. That's where a lot of the guys got their stomping ground. Randy Poffo owned a big promotion down there. Lenny Poffo, I mean, that's where they got their stomping grounds. You know, they went through the Cincinnati Reds. I don't know if anybody knew that Randy Poffo has like a little Cincinnati Reds baseball card before he became Randy Savage. And those were all his stomping grounds. And just being able to go through that and drive those back roads, 4 hours down one way, 4 hours back, and then up for the next day it was definitely a grind, but such a good experience.
What was the biggest culture shock for you moving from Cincinnati to Los Angeles?
I think the grocery store. I say that all sincerity, and I use it as an analogy because, you go to the grocery store here, everyone's got their headphones on. It's all about boom, boom, boom. What's next? This is boom. Everyone's moving, everyone's shaking, and that just translates into the lifestyle out here. A lot of people they're going fast. A lot of people are focused on their dream or their goal, and they're running towards it. So they don't tend to be closed off to other people, but it's kind of hard to assimilate versus in the Midwest or in Cincinnati, for example. You go to the grocery store and you talk to the lady next to you about what you had for lunch. You know what I mean? And there you're striking up a 30-minute conversation, shooting the crap. When here it's typically, everyone's got to get what they got to get in and out. So that's kind of like the first thing that I noticed, the fast-paced lifestyle. Midwest is a little bit slower. It's a little bit more spacious, and wrestling translates into that. Well, the way you want to wrestle, you want to be able to translate that in your wrestling so people can associate, and it's a great dichotomy. So you can bring a little bit of that with me, and I can bring a little bit of California back to Cincinnati when I go back.
How would you describe the differences in the wrestling styles? You said that things are a little bit slower in Midwest. So compared to the, I would say, more lucha-based Southern California style, what do you see? What have you been able to bring here? What have you absorbed from here?
Yeah, no, you really hit the nail on the head. Midwest, it's a little bit slower paced. People like comedic spots to tell a story. The focus is on the story told over a period of shows even. We have such a loyal fan base too. You'll probably see in the AMW, there's like stories that have been told for years there. Same with the NWF. For years we've been building these stories. And it's no different in California on the story aspect. The only thing that's different is how fast-paced the match is. Lucha training is something I've never done in my life until I came to California. There has been like little tidbits here and there on how to wrestle lucha style based on the people that have come through, but it's a totally different mindset. The wrestling is fast paced. There are a lot of spots, there are a lot of moves, there are a lot of kicks and punches, and so being able to bring that back kind of updates my style in the Midwest, but bring some of the Midwest here might be able to slow things down for some of the fans that aren't used to seeing that, and maybe they find something that they like better there, or it's just a little bit different.
Of course. Were you able to get into the Los Luchas class by chance? I'm wondering what your lucha training actually was in California.
So mainly EWF. I use the Empire Wrestling Federation for a lot of things. They've been such a great help for me. They're really close to where I live, so great training there. I've been to Santino's before. I did some open rings with them. They're a little bit further from where I live though, so travel permitting. A great school too. United Wrestling Network's own, the Wrestle Center with Steve, with Pete. I mean, what a great experience that was, riding with him up there, and some of the UWN guys, being able to train with them. So that was awesome. And Pete showed me some of the ropes there as well. And he actually, surprisingly to me, was more Midwestern than a lot of people were out here in his wrestling style. And I was very able to adapt to that. And he was able to kind of tweak things that I was doing, say, hey, try it this way, do it this way. That kind of helped bridge that gap.
That's excellent. Yeah, Peter Avalon, for people who weren't unaware, was the lead, trainer for the United Wrestling Network Wrestle Center. So in being one of even not a world traveled wrestler, but a wrestler who has had a lot of experiences with different styles, I could very easily see Pete, who is also another student of the game type, who's been able to absorb and pick things up where he can. So in order to give back, like you were saying. So.
Yeah, for sure. I can't say enough about him. I say he's my Pete is like one of those guys that, you always have your mentor that helps shape who you are, and you have that person you cling to for wherever you're at. Cincinnati, I know who those guys are. And then when I came to California, I was looking for those guys. EWF was, one of those schools, but Peter really, just as a genuine person, is so easy to be attached to, because he cares about you. He cares about the industry. Like you said, he's a student of the game. He's willing to help anybody. So, I mean, he's a good brother for sure.
We talked about how Triple H was your first foray into finding pro wrestling, and we've talked about who some of your trainers are and some of your mentors along the way. But who would you say are some of your biggest influences on your in-ring style?
Oh, in-ring style, I'm going to go back to Barry Windham first and foremost. That is how I started. I had the cowboy boots, like the Dusty Rhodes, the whole nines. Stan Hansen, I mean, any of those guys in the old NWA were what I watch. I still watch, 80s tapes. I just throw them on and just keep pouring through them. So I think a lot of those guys, but Steamboat too, just in the way that he uses his facial expressions and everything that he does in the ring. Steamboat, Hansen, all great influences. I can kind of shape it to a little bit more modern too. I was a big Punk fan for a while, still am. That's a little different from the Triple H style. It's actually, I think it's totally different, which was pretty cool. And then Chris Jericho as well. I think even to this day, he continues to reinvent himself. So I like everybody for different reasons, bigger guys, character guys, things like that. So those are the names that really have developed my style, if you would.
Nice.
Going back to Peter for a moment, this actually reminded me of a question I wanted to ask earlier. So Peter, now very known for having a mustache. I have a mustache. Jon has a goatee. Have you ever tried having facial hair?
Yes, I have. Yes, and there is a photo on the internet. You can look at December 2018 posters from the Empire Wrestling Federation, and you will see me sporting a lovely goatee, just like Jon there. I would love to go back too. I've gone back to the babyface look, but I have tried to grow facial hair before. Yes.
Yeah. See, because towards the end of the video, you were talking about again things that are coming out for Golden Boy coming up next, and you mentioned having a little bit of a rush for edge or a similar idea. So I thought maybe having a little bit of a rougher face might make that more baby faced look, give it a little bit more of that edge. So I'd be curious
certainly.
to see.
No, I completely agree with you too. I've always, if I could grow the Triple H handlebar mustache, oh, for sure, I'd be rocking it.
So are you saying it comes in all like patchy, like Johnny Depp kind of style?
Sure. I can get like the goatee, like the goatee works. I guess don't ask some other people; they don't really like the goatee, but I think the goatee works. The problem is getting it in on the sides. That's where the patchiness comes in for sure.
That is very true. Who have been some of your favorite people to work with since you've come out here?
Man, I throw Peter at the top of that list. We had that match for Impact. What a great great opportunity that was. That's one of my favorite matches to send out. Still to this day, it remains on my resume. Peter's great. I mean, really, all the guys I don't think I've had a bad experience. All the guys in the EWF locker room, I've had a lot of matches with. Richie Slade, Tyree. A lot of those guys that I've worked with. Even Gatson. I'm trying to think of names. I couldn't do it justice. I could go down a whole list. Honest John, all of those guys that I've been able to even, help as well, being in a different level of experience. Coming in from the outside too, it was like, who is this guy? How much does he know? How good is he? Let's see let's test him out. Let's put him with a couple guys. So once they got an idea from my experience, they start trusting me with other people. Then I'll go to the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Ray Rosas, I put him on the top of that list too. Great guy to work with. I did a lot of stuff with a bunch of guys there, and I've enjoyed working with even Watts. We teamed once, and it was such a great crowd reaction. I loved it. It was like they were chanting "Golden Watts" out of nowhere, and I thought, this is great. I love this, and what a great guy to call a match with, and just being able to work around. So there's so many great guys. Rogelio or Che Cabrera, great guys to wrestle, great guys to be around. Even in the EWF, we've had some matches. So.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to bring up Ray Rosas, because as far as storylines go with United, I feel like you spent the most time either as his student on his side or as his opponent while you've been around the last year or two. So I guess how was it working with Ray?
Yeah, we had a match, a feeling out process, and that was like my first introduction to wrestling with him. I actually just rewatched that match not too long ago, and I saw some clips on it online. So that was such a great experience, getting able to learn from Ray and being able to have him out there watch my matches to give me advice too when we were mentoring. I was like student teachee type of thing. And then being able to wrestle him as an opponent, to see that aggressive side of him, to see him really pull out all the stops, at the PP3 Cup, the semifinals is probably the is probably the highlight. You know, that was such a big opportunity, even in the comedy, the Irvine comedy, where we did the event, being able to be a part of that match. You know, I wasn't in that match specifically, but what a great opportunity, you know, just to see everything go on the road like that. And they did such a great job. So.
Cool. What has been some of your, or one of your favorite venues to work in? Because in the Push interview, you talked about working in VFW halls and hockey stadiums and studios. So what has been like one of or some of your favorite venues to wrestle in?
So I want to say that hockey stadium, for example, that was so cool. You know, that was in Port Huron, Michigan, for Blue Water Championship Wrestling. That was a good experience. It was such a great draw, and it was out there. It was like 5 hours away, so it was like my first real outside of my own like territory, so to speak. My first wrestling match, and to be able to be there, you know, lights, stage, the whole thing. That was like my first introduction to say, okay, this is what this could be. You know, and that's no different than wrestling in a VFW hall or a studio for that matter. You know, everything's just different, has a different feel. But that specifically was like, you know, okay, I'm starting to get the feel of what this could look like, what this could build out to be in the future, you know, and help get my feet wet. And when it gets to bigger and bigger audiences. So that was really cool. The Irvine Comedy Club, that was really cool. I loved that place. It had such a great atmosphere. The lighting was fantastic. I mean, wow, that was awesome. I mean, the lights just popped off that stage. To be able to be there and to be a part of that show was probably my second favorite arena, if not the first. I mean, that was awesome. I even got to drive the ring truck for that one. So that's one of those ring truck stories.
That's right, you did. That's right. And we were on the phone trying to figure out how to get you into the loading dock.
I was circling the Irvine. I'm like, John, where am I at? Come on now. Come on, buddy.
Yeah, that was a fun day.
Yes, it was.
Oh, my.
So speaking of different venues and different techniques of when it comes to how you work in the ring, what was one of the biggest learning curves or changes for you when you went from working for an audience only to working television?
The cameras, you know, I think, but one thing that's important too, that I've never lost sight of, which may or may not differentiate me, I'm not sure, is just the crowd reaction. I feel like it's different. Being able to have that organic connection with them has helped me a lot. And maybe it's just through the style that I wrestle, but you know, they're important too. And I understand, you know, in studio wrestling, there's 500 people in the seats, maybe 500, you know, maybe even 500,000, who knows, but there's millions watching at home, right? So it's just as important, but to have that organic connection, I think also is important to have that translated over. Now with COVID, I think things have totally changed. So that dynamic is totally different. There's much more emphasis on the camera work, which is interesting. And it's actually a plus for me because being able to have that experience will help me in the long run too. You know, I believe. So I'm only looking at the positives with everything. There's obviously a lot of negatives, not being able to wrestle in front of crowds, but at the end of the day, this, you know, it is what it is. This whole thing could be viewed as positive, I think.
Yeah. I'm going to go over to the chat for a moment. Brenda Leonard says, "We miss you in Cincinnati." Who is that?
That is actually my mom. So I miss you too, Mom. What an interesting comment to throw out there. I miss you too. Do not miss Cincinnati specifically, though. It is too beautiful here to go back to the rain and the cold. So I do apologize, but you have to come out here.
You get snow in Cincinnati too, right?
Yeah, and it's like snow tomorrow, then it's going to be rain the following day, then it'll be 110 degrees the following day. So
So are you a big Bengals fan then?
You know, that's a great question. I think I've de facto jumped to like the LA teams because I don't know that the Bengals have done anything noteworthy in like the last 25 years. So, you know,
like since the Boomer Esiason days.
Yeah, like the Big Red Machine, let's go. I'm all down. Of course, I'm a Big Reds fan. You know, Big Red Machine when we were rocking and rolling. Not so much anymore again, but you know, things might turn around. You never know. I could be a bandwagon fan though. I'm a big fan of everything. So sports in general. I was watching softball last night for some random reason and just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, of course. Go back to the chat. Let's see. Dena Ball asks, "Who would your dream match be?" Who would be your dream match?
My dream match. I think I would be remiss to say if it obviously wasn't Triple H. I think that would be a cool match to have, but that's more like shooting for the stars, right? I think dialing it down on this level, I would love to do have another match with Peter. I think Peter Avalon would be a great match to have, and Ray. Those are like my dream matches in this area. I think those would be great opportunities just to be able to have that in front of a camera again. Those are some of my closely held matches, and if I could do it again, I'm lucky enough that have that dream match.
Yeah, I would like to see those again. I think that right before we kind of closed down on Hollywood tapings, like before once COVID set in, you seem to be scuffling a little bit with Zicky Dice on our TV show, and that is a match I actually would really like to see. So when we come back, I'm wondering if you guys might be crossing paths again. If you had anything to say about it.
I hope so. I definitely have something to say about it. Zicky, I want you again in that ring for sure. I'm throwing that challenge out there. It doesn't matter if we have to do a cinematic match or if it's me and you one-on-one at CWFH. Let's bring that bad boy to television. It needs to happen.
I'm trying to picture where if they did have a cinematic match, if it would take place in like a fanny pack emporium, or if like a golden room. Like what is the realm that the two of you would exist in? What is like your Mortal Kombat stage?
I think it definitely starts like out on the streets. When we go at it, and then we change the arena. How you knock in the Mortal Kombat, you go down to the next level. Yeah. Boom, then we're into the fanny pack shop, and then boom, we tumble, and lo and behold, you end up in the room of gold, and it's like, come on, baby, let's finish this thing off. That's where it ends.
My gosh, that's great. Did you
because
play?
Gold is worth more than a fanny pack.
That's right.
Do you play any video games, or did you used to?
Yeah, I've definitely got more into gaming lately with COVID. I mean, it's been a minute since I've actually had the time to sit down and actually enjoy video games. I'll share with you what I'm on right now, Borderlands 3. It's such a great game, and I love that. Obviously the wrestling games are cool too. I'm also a fan of some of the more animes, Ninja Storm 4, Jump Force. I really get down with almost anything. Mortal Kombat I can play, not the best at it though. And then obviously my favorite of all time is Skyrim. Classic. I've put hundreds of hours of that into my in my high school days, so can't go wrong with that.
Incredible. I'd say recently people have been talking more about what their non-wrestling influences have been, just online or in what things they pulled together from the world to kind of create their character. What are some kinds of media that I guess growing up kind of influenced you that weren't necessarily wrestling?
Yeah, I've had a lot of influences here and there that have helped shape who I am. But there's one really distinct one that stood out to me, especially when I was getting into wrestling, and maybe even before so. Greg Plitt, bodybuilder, passed away at a young age, 35-ish, but he was also a motivational speaker. And he translated things to me that it hit me in a certain way. It was just like, it was a way that I could just get out and be motivated, and I would listen to those tapes, all day, every day, studying what he did in the gym. I mean, he did the MFT 28 program, military fitness trainer. So if there's anybody into working out, I mean, if you want to kick your butt in the gym, those 28 days are brutal. But that guy, he's got the best motivational speech behind, par none. So another person too, I would say, outside of Greg Plitt, is maybe even some people in the finance realm. I'm huge into finance. I that's what I went to college for, in case you're curious. So people like that have always influenced me along the way. So Malcolm Gladwell is a great book author. I love him. If you've ever read any of his books or his finance-related books, The Big Short, it's a great book, and an even better movie. If you haven't seen it, it's got Steve Carell, Matthew McConaughey. It's got the whole nines and Ryan Gosling. I mean, you should check it out. I mean, it was pretty cool. So,
what college did you go to?
I went to Miami University in Ohio, and then ended up graduating from Northern Kentucky across the river. So,
nice. Did you play any sports in college? Any actual school sports or intramural sports or anything?
No, I did not. I was training at the time. That's when I started training. So, graduated high school. Weird story. Went to a Miami Marlins game randomly, and with my friends on like our senior trip. It was a couple of us, and we're sitting there, and I thought, I was thinking at the time, maybe I want to do it after college. I want to focus on college, maybe do some sports in college. And hit me there. I was in that stadium, and I looked around, and I thought, yeah, this I can't wait any longer. This is my childhood dream. I need to start. So 18, signed up, and did that all through college.
Nice. Who were some of your favorite drummers? Going back to drums for a minute.
Man, favorite drummers. Neil Peart is probably one of the best of all time. There are a couple that I can think of. Man, I wish I could. Marco Miniman. If anybody knows who that is, man, I've watched his tapes until I was car sick. Like, this guy has got multiple hands for sure. I'm convinced. I mean, it's not just 2 hands and 2 feet. I've never seen a guy go on for just ever. So he tried out for Dream Theater. Maybe you guys know, like, one of the better, like musically sound bands. He tried out for Dream Theater. He came in second. to lose it out to a good brother that's there now. But man, Marco, what a great guy. I still have his tapes. I could probably watch him again, but I don't want to get sick. I mean, he plays for 6 hours straight. I don't know how he does it.
So maybe this is a spot where you could jump into, because Zicky Dice is he the front man for a band? I know he's in a band himself. Maybe you could step in or even try to sabotage him by taking a seat.
That's a good idea. What I'll do is you could go in like a mask. It could be like a step-in drummer for his band. Start going down, and the next thing you know, I just start chucking drumsticks at him. That's my behind attack. Boom, I got him. Well, I don't want to reveal my plan to Zicky Dice, but you'll never see where I'm coming from. Don't check the drum seat, though.
Well, look out, Heart to Heart. Your lead singer's about to go down.
That's right. That's
So who in Hollywood? You already mentioned Ray and Peter. When we do come back to new programming, new wrestling, who's someone that you really would love to get in the ring with from the Hollywood locker room?
That's easy. Watts. I was scheduled to hopefully enter into a feud with Watts when I was at Alpha Omega and in the desert, Alpha Omega Wrestling, and then in Victorville. COVID hit. That didn't happen. But Watts for sure. I don't care if he's a champion or not. I want Watts. I've been able to tag with him. I was really looking forward to that feud. Two big men going at it. I think that would be really cool.
Right on. Do you think you can get your foot up for the Midas touch? He's a pretty tall guy.
That's a good point. I think I got to chop that big tree down. I got a game plan. I've seen some tapes, but you never know. The Midas touch can literally come out of anywhere, and that's the best part about it, man. Is that big boot? You'll never see it coming, and when you hit it, it's 1, 2, 3 from there. I mean, stars and stripes the whole way.
A thing I would recommend avoiding is trying to do a big boot off the top rope. That didn't work out for Sid.
Are you sure about that? I might be developing.
I'm just trying to protect your ankles.
No. I always joke about that. I think that's so funny. Not funny. It's horrible, but that gif stays playing in my mind whenever something go to the top rope. Oof. Yeah, oof is right. Yeah, I'm gonna pass on that one. I'm a top rope kind of guy. In case you guys haven't seen my wrestling.
Incredible. All right, so as we're looking to wind down here in the next couple of minutes, I'm gonna go a question from the chat here. Mike Ball Big Max says, "You're my favorite wrestler. What's next for the Golden Boy?"
Well, stay tuned to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, because I've been working with somebody and I've been training, and only time will tell. I'm not going to reveal the name. I'm not going to reveal the location, but be prepared. And the Midas touch is going to come back, and it's going to be different than ever, and my look is going to be different. And that's going to incorporate some bodybuilding. That's going to incorporate some things outside of what I'm doing that I won't mention today. But stay tuned to television, because I've been working on it since COVID.
Very intriguing information there, Mr. Clearwater. Very intriguing. All right. I see you.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So you're calling out the Heritage Champion, and you have some new things in the works.
That's right. And this guy might be able to help me beat him. I don't know that I'd need it with him, but he's definitely going to help. He's going to give me the leg up in the competition. So
I would say if you are trying to get through Watts, it would be very helpful for you to try to be bulletproof. So I think if you're going to go down any road, being as tough as you can is definitely the way to go. So I applaud you on that one.
Absolutely. Yeah. You might have even given, I'm not going to know. You know what? I'm not going to say anything. But you are 100% right, Nick. You hit the nail on the head. Bulletproof.
Incredible. All right, Jordan, where can we find you online? Where do we follow you?
So Clear Like Water 1 is my handle on everything. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at Clear Like Water 1. That's actually a funny story that came from a trainee a long time ago, Clear Like Water, a play on my last name. So I decided to take it into the Twitter handle and throw a 1 behind it. So that's across the board.
Very good. John, where can we find you?
At Jon Roberts Live on Instagram and Twitter. And I'm on Facebook, Jon Roberts. Just come find me.
Thank you both for joining me tonight. Of course, I'm at Nicholas Bonanno, and you want to make sure to follow United Wrestling Network online. On Twitter, that is at United Wrestling. On Instagram, at United Wrestling Network. And on Facebook and YouTube, United Wrestling Network. So make sure to like, subscribe, share with everyone that you know. Tell them where we are. And thank you to everyone who networks with United. Have a good night.
Thanks for having us, guys.